Well, hello everyone, and welcome to our week 5. Unbelievable that we are uh, past the halfway mark of the class and headed into that home stretch. Okay, so I hope that you are enjoying the course so far. I hope that the material is serving you well in your personal or professional situations, and that this is all also um, helping you to become a little bit more um, knowledgeable of ethics and legal and ethical issues that we as public administrators and managers and professionals in general have to manage and have to uh, handle in our daily lives, right? So, with that said, let's jump into this week's recommendations, requirements, I'm sorry, and what we have for readings, what we have for videos, and then we'll talk a little bit about some of the concepts for this week. So, for this week, we have chapter 9. We only have one chapter this week, so I'm giving you a break. Just kidding. So we have chapter 9, and chapter 9 is on elevating ethical behavior in the organization. And what this chapter talks about, which is very important when it comes to the the execution of ethical behavior and the promotion of ethical behavior, is leadership. And for those of you that have taken leadership before or a leadership class, you are probably aware of the different styles of leadership, and also what leadership is and what leadership isn't. And sometimes, especially for those who haven't taken leadership, we tend to confuse or misconstrue the concept of leadership, thinking that leadership is exclusively the product of a position of power or influence or control. And yes, leadership is associated with those forces, and there are leaders that because they enjoy power, influence, or control, are able uh, to be in a position of leadership. But leadership doesn't have to be. You don't have to be in those positions in order to be a leader. In fact, you can be a follower, and followership is that concept that tells us that followers are also leaders in their own right. There's also leadership styles that help us to understand the different ways that we can be leaders, right? And how we can manage and assess and address different situations by applying a particular leadership style. So, for example, when we talk about a situation that demands an autocratic leadership style versus a situation that calls for a more democratic leadership style, right? So, which situation might require an autocratic leadership style? Well, think about a crisis situation or an emergency situation where decisions have to be made in space and time. And you don't have the luxury of asking everybody in the room what they think, right? So, those types of situations demand a take hold, take control type of leadership style. Whereas situations where the input of those individuals in the group would enhance the quality of the the responses or the decision making, then those situations would be better served by applying a collaborative or a democratic leadership style. Then you have something called situational leadership, and that means that leadership should depend on the situation that you find yourself in, but also in the level of maturity of your subordinates. And by maturity, we mean their disposition to perform the work. And the second thing is their ability to perform the work. So, can they do the work and do they want to do the work, right? And this measures a person's maturity. And depending on the maturity of one's group or one's followers will determine what kind of leadership style one will apply to get those individuals to do whatever you need them to do to achieve the desired goal or outcome. So in this sense, and taking now thinking about leadership and what we just talked about and applying it to the idea of elevating ethical behavior. Well, we say elevating ethical behavior in the organization because you need leadership. You need strong leaders, strong leadership to be able to elevate ethical behavior in the organization. Individuals do as their superiors do. And so if you want to have an organization that is ethical and that upholds certain values and morals, etc., you are going to have to create that culture in the organization yourself as the person in power, authority, or influence, right? So leadership in this sense becomes essential. Leaders become the agents of ethical behavior in an organization. And so having the right leadership approach and style is fundamental to one being able to be an effective agent of ethics in an organization. So that's one part. The other part is this concept of social equity, right? And what do we mean by social equity, right? In trying to define this, is it fairness? Are we trying to achieve fairness, a fair outcome? Or is it justice that we seek? And what is that? What is justice, right? Is it equality, right? Is social equity equality? And by equality, do we mean equality of opportunity, or do we mean equality of outcome? So you see, in trying to understand and define social equity, whether we're talking about it as fairness or justice or equality, you can see how quickly it becomes very difficult to find a simple explanation and definition for it. Okay, so this is what Chapter 9 is all about. And then for this week, you also have to watch a few videos, right? So you have, let's see here, you have the video on justice, okay? And this video on justice talks about justice from different perspectives. So justice as equality. So for example, should everyone get the same? Okay, everybody should get the same. Everybody should have the same car. Everybody should have the same house. Okay? So when we think about that, do we mean that? Or do we mean everybody should have the same opportunity to have that car, to buy that car, or to purchase that same house? Or everybody should have the same opportunity to go to college? And if everybody should have the opportunity to go to college, does everybody have to have the same opportunity to go to every single college? Meaning, are there not some colleges that are going to be reserved for those who perhaps score better on exams or who have better grades, right? Or who might have more money to pay for higher tuition rates? So, justice as equality is complicated, right? When we talk about same, do we mean opportunity or do we mean outcome? Then there's need-based justice, and this is getting justice based on what you need. So, for example, if a person, if say in a town there's a person that is unemployed, and they need help. Okay, does justice mean that the town should all pitch in and help that person who is unemployed be able to buy groceries and put food on the table and pay rent, etc.? So based on one's needs, okay? And this sounds like it's very reasonable, right? Need-based justice, sure. Whoever needs it should get it. But here's a problem, okay? How do you determine whose needs are more important, right? How do you make that distinction between one person's need and another if you have a limited amount of resources or a budget to go to distribute, right? And also, at what point does the need end, right? What if the person needs help forever, indefinitely? Then are you obligated to help that person indefinitely? What if the person is doing nothing to meet his or her needs? What if the person is saying, you know what? If I'm getting this for free, why am I going to do anything if I'm getting all the help that I need, right? So need-based justice, while it sounds very reasonable, can also produce some situations where it becomes difficult and complicated to manage. Then you have merit-based justice, and this is getting what you deserve. And so in this sense, getting what you deserve, it's all about rewards and punishment. So those that work hard should have more money. Those that don't spend their time drinking and smoking and going out and doing all the things that one shouldn't do, right? At least one shouldn't do if they want to get to work early, right? Those should get promoted. Those should be the ones who get the merit and the credit at work and perhaps achieve higher promotions and positions and make more money and have higher incomes. I mean, that's justice. They deserve that because they have put in the work and they have sacrificed the time that they could have been doing things that would have taken them away from achieving their goals. They have sacrificed that and put it into effort, and also decided that it would be important to sleep and to rest and to eat well, etc. So rewards should come to those who deserve those rewards. But what about punishments? Okay, merit-based justice is also about punishment. So in the same way that those who are responsible and who don't stay up till 5 in the morning every night, and who get to work early, and who don't sleep on the job and do everything that is expected of them, in the same way that those get rewarded, those that do not, they should be punished. So if one of these individuals gets fired from work, that's not unjust, that's justice. That's the consequence of one's actions. And the punishment that comes about it is not discrimination, which we'll talk about here in a minute, but rather justice. This is the consequence of your actions. You reap what you sow, right? So that's that idea. And if you think about this idea too, when it comes to things like incarceration, right? You break the law, there's a consequence. So there's a punishment. You commit a crime, there's a punishment. This is justice, right? Then we have the 2 points of view or perspectives, theoretical perspectives, from Rawls, the Rawlsian perspective, who sees justice as fairness, and then we have the Nozick's perspective, who sees justice as counter to Rawls. Okay, so let's look at Rawls first. Rawls believes that the inequalities should favor the least well-off to level the playing field. So Rawls believes that if we're going to be just, we have to start at the very bottom of the totem pole of society, and we have to start favoring those at the very bottom, because by doing that, we are going to level off the playing field. We are going to reduce the inequities or the disparity between the haves and the have-nots. Here again, this sounds very reasonable. It sounds wonderful, right? But at what point is that fair? Okay, what if you favor the least well off, as Nozick argues? What if you do that and continue to do that? Okay, is that not punishing those who work hard by not rewarding them? I mean, is it essentially a negative reward becomes a punishment, right? So are you not punishing them? Are you not rewarding for leisure or for poor behavior or for things like loathing around and eating potato chips and drinking soda and watching Netflix 10 hours a day and getting rewarded for it? Whereas the other individual who is working 10 hours a day and being responsible and being entrepreneurial and trying to do something, make something out of his or her life, they get punished. So you see here that we have these two conflicting perspectives about justice. And it's, again, not easy to come to a conclusion about what exactly is justice, okay? What do we mean by that? Now, thinking about this, perhaps this next picture will help us maybe understand a little better. And this is a picture that you might have seen often on the internet. Maybe you've seen it in other textbooks, but it's a classic, right? And this is the picture that has the three kids, and they are watching the baseball game. And in the first picture, the first one from left to right, the first one on the left, you have the tall kid who is enjoying the game a lot. It's obvious, right? The middle kid who is also enjoying the game. And then you have the poor little guy who is not enjoying the game at all because he's looking straight into the board. Okay? Poor kid can't see the game. All right? If you think about this, this is a representation. These pictures are a representation of society. And if you think about the analogy here, making the analogy, these three individuals represent society. The boxes that they have represent the resources that we have in society, and the fence represents the constraints or restraints or obstacles that we often face in society to get ahead. The game is life. The game represents life, work, opportunities, success, right? And so this metaphor is a metaphor for society. It's a metaphor for seeing how two of these individuals are able to enjoy all of the benefits of life, success, and opportunity, and there's one individual who simply is unable to because of the constraints and the obstacles that are placed before him. And even though he has access to the resources that society, or let's say here the government or the private sector provides, it's still not enough for this individual. And so if we look at this first picture, the one on the left, is it justice? Is it fair? Right? And if you think about this one picture, it's really, this one picture represents equality of opportunity, okay? In some sense, if you think about the boxes as being equality of opportunity, where each person is given the opportunity to watch the game, but the government or society cannot ascertain or cannot guarantee that every one person is able to watch the game or will be able to see with that box. That's just something that the government or society cannot guarantee. So is that fair? Right? Let's look at the second box. In the second box, what we assume, and we don't know this, but we are assuming that one of two things have happened. We are assuming that either the government has redistributed the income or the resources, in this case these crates, right? Either the government has redistributed these crates or the income so that the person, the tall kid who does not need the crates because he can see the game without them, you are taking that crate and giving it to the little guy, and so now the little guy is very happy because he's now able to enjoy from the game and life and the opportunities and all of that. The middle guy is not affected at all, but you are assuming then that the tall kid is okay with these boxes, these resources taken away, or the income redistributed. And that's important because we don't know if that's the case. Because while the tall kid is unaffected, but if you think about justice as fairness, okay, is it fair? I mean, is it fair to take away that box, which was his, regardless of whether he needed it or not, right? So, and of course, it may. The answer might be, well, he didn't need it, so he's not going to suffer. And many 9 out of 10 would agree with you. But at the end of the day, think, is it fair? And it may be fair because of the end result that results in a much more equitable distribution, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's fair, right? Because this person, this tall person, might contribute to the system so that he has his box, so that he is guaranteed his box. And so he is contributing to the system, let's say in the form of taxes, and yet his box has been taken away by the government. And he has no choice in the matter. Is that fair? So I'll leave that question to you. And then the third picture is an interesting one. And this one has been added to the classic, this classic two pictures. This third one is important because what this third one does is it gives us the solution that will guarantee equal access, equity, and justice, in that it does not require any redistribution of the income. It does not put us into a situation where you're wondering whether the tall kid is happy or not with his box being taken away. And it guarantees that everybody will have exactly the same access, enjoyment, right? But without any obstacles. And what you're seeing here is you're seeing the fence, which is protecting the players. So there is that protection. So in a sense, it's a metaphor for the government providing a resource that is equally benefited by everybody, but it is not restricting or constraining any of the three individuals in society in any way. So you had the fence before, which was there as a natural obstacle in society. Well, now that fence has been replaced by another natural obstacle, but this natural obstacle does not keep you from achieving the benefits, the gains, the rewards of the game. So this is this third picture is the picture that represents fairness in many ways, because it achieves equity, it achieves equality of opportunity, equity of outcome, and it does so without taking anything away from anybody that would be construed by any of these individuals to be unfair. Okay? So I thought I'd share that picture with you. All right. So we have those videos. We also have another video this week, and this video is by Dr. Linda Sundstrom, and this video is not mine; it's hers, but I want to keep it in there, so so you have a better idea about how the political continuum works in the U.S. and how it kind of plays into the concept of fairness and justice and equity and equality. Okay, because we know in certain political systems the concept of equity and equality take on a very different perspective and connotation. And fairness, in fact, takes on a very different meaning because fairness is determined by a select group of people who are making the decisions for everybody else. Then we have discrimination. This is another topic that we discussed in this week. And discrimination, we look at it from what is discrimination from for example, our ethical decisions based on situations, right? Can we discriminate? And would it be fair and just to do so in certain situations? For example, those of you that have grandparents or your parents, if they are elderly, say 60 and over, there are special tickets at the movies, right? You have these senior citizen specials, right? Or senior citizen discounts at supermarkets or at restaurants. Well, that's discrimination. You're discriminating a separate group of society based on age, and you're treating them differently. That's discrimination. But nobody complains about that, right? Nobody complains about getting a deal. Nobody complains about getting a 10% or 20% discount. And so discrimination doesn't necessarily have to be a negative thing or carry a negative connotation. Okay? So depending on the context and the situation that calls for the discrimination will determine whether the discrimination takes on a negative or positive context. Because again, here, that's one example. Another example might be, can you discriminate based on height? For example, if you are a fighter pilot, you cannot be a certain height. You can't be too tall or you can't be too short. Well, that's discrimination, but that's because of the requirements of the job and the characteristics of the plane and the cockpit. What about if you're blind? If you cannot see well, should you be allowed to fly an airplane? Can the government discriminate against you, or a private firm discriminate? Say, for example, TWA or I don't know, U.S. Air. Can they discriminate against you because you are blind or you are hearing impaired, so you might not be able to hear the signals and the sounds and the alarms of the cockpit? Can you be discriminated against? You see, so when it comes to discrimination in the context of fairness, we have to look at it based on the context and the situations. All right. So for this week, as far as your deliverables, we have the multimedia discussion board. You can read here. I'm not going to go through every single part here. Just remember, this is due Saturday, and you can read this on your own because I will provide you the PowerPoint. Do remember, or as a guideline for some of you who might be having a little bit of a hard time trying to get the length of your video correct, you might consider, for example, the first part, the brief introduction and information on why ethics are important, devote about a minute. Then the second part, you might, the part where you provide your employees with a brief theoretical foundation, which ethical practice will be based, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought here. On which of the ethical practices will be based, although you would probably not include a theory background in a real-life training. Okay, so for this part, you can devote another minute, maybe a minute and a half or two. Then the third part, provide employees with an overview of why a code of ethics or code of conduct is important for your agency. That's another minute. And then provide an ethical scenario they may encounter specific to your agency, another minute here. And then lastly, provide thoughts on how to address it. And this would be a final last minute. Okay, so this is it kind of gives you an idea of how you might want to break this down. And then you have your week 5 lit review. This is due Sunday. For this one, select the type of agency on which to focus. Locate journal articles discussing ethics in that type of agency. Select 3 journal articles, and then create an annotated bibliography style paper. And then you answer the questions in the summary. So answer these 4 questions. Okay? And for this one, okay, remember, submit an annotated bibliography style that lists the citations for each article in APA format, APA 7, okay? So make sure that we are using the right format, along with a brief summary of the information contained in the article. So citation in APA format, followed by a paragraph, next citation, next paragraph, okay? So that is your week 5 presentation. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you have fun. And as always, have a great week, and God bless you. Thank you.